Hello everyone, and welcome to the final entry in the dark, weird, and controversial artist Iceberg. This is a series of entries that were either forgotten by me, that were relatively obvious, like Dolly Flesh and Schmorky, or entries suggested by you, the viewers. Now, if you suggested an entry for this video and it doesn't appear, it either means I couldn't find any info on it, or it just wasn't that interesting. I'm all for calling out people that do heinous things, but if your suggestion was this guy that does South Park fan animations was accused of grooming, it probably didn't have enough info and just wasn't that interesting for the video. So as for updates and corrections from the previous tier, firstly, this one actually pisses me off. A number of you claim that the YouTuber Think Before You Sleep never said, and I quote, autism is a fake disability, so here's the G-damn clip.
Second, Raymond needs to practice his social skills, but the problem is that he is way behind socially for a person in his 30s, so probably very few people are going to want to talk to him. He's also unemployed if that's a shock to anyone. He should maybe look for a job because that would at least put him in a position where people are forced to talk to him so he can practice. Outside of that, and continuing with the notion that autism is a fake disability because almost everyone who claims they have it can just train their way out of it, probably the only way that Raymond's going to catch up enough socially to the point where a woman would be willing to date him is to learn conversational skills through therapy out of his comfort zone.
See, he did say that. Alright. Makes me angry when people claim disabilities don't exist. Okay, moving on from that mess, additional information here. The Pokemon Reshiram is 10 foot 6 inches, so not exactly as tall as a skyscraper, but just tall enough to get a few matches on Tinder. I missed a minor detail, well, actually major detail about Emily Yukis that I'll put on screen now, because I can't say it this early in this video, so that's an important part of her lore. Yeah, that one was probably the biggest rabbit hole in the last video. As for an update on the previous entries, just one, that guy John is still making awful videos on art YouTube. Like, wow, he's so bad, he should really stop. Now, I have this image here of the bonus tier, but there will actually be more after it's done, so make sure you watch all the way through, hit the like, the subscribe, and comment and all that. Anyway, one last thing before we begin the final entry, I don't give a shit about your political takes. I try to cover the entries that have politics involved as objectively as I can. I always like to try to squeeze some jokes into my videos for entertainment purposes, because my videos are for the sake of entertainment, alright? You could be the leftiest lefty or the hardest rightoid ever, I do not care. At the end of the day, we are all just human beings and we all have different worldviews and perspectives on things. Just because we disagree on things does not mean that we can't be friends or come up with solutions to issues in this world together. If you're going to take away one thing from this video series, it's that politics are mostly a waste of time. There's more to life than that, okay? Both sides like art, so I just try my best to tiptoe around it when it comes up in this series. Don't waste your time fighting the comment section, go draw a picture instead. Alright, so there's my little addendum on the political entries. Anyway, that's that. Let's begin. Hitler. Honestly, not much to say on this one. It's pretty well known that Adolf Hitler started out as an artist before shifting careers into genocidal dictator. Very lucrative career path. Probably the epitome of the art versus artist debate, you know? His pieces are technically well executed, however, the person behind them is one of the most evil in human history. So do these artworks hold any value at all? I suppose that's for the viewer to decide. Should note that his pieces are entirely devoid of any people at all, mostly landscapes and architecture. So, yeah, that's that. Hitler was an artist. That's how he started out. So, moving along to Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol assassination attempt. Andy Warhol, an artist some would consider the godfather of pop art, once had a brush with death in 1968. The assailant, Valerie Solanas. Valerie Solanas was a radical feminist, most noted for her SCUM manifesto, SCUM being an acronym for Society for Cutting Up Men. Personally, I kind of like reading delusional manifestos like this, but honestly, you don't need to these days. Just hop on Twitter and type in the modern feminist catchphrase, you know the one, kill all men, and you'll basically be reading the same thing. Or alternatively, you can read one of those incel forums, and anytime you see the word woman, or in their language, femoid or foid, just replace it with men, and you'll essentially have the same thing. Funnily enough, when the SCUM manifesto was published, it was so extreme that many people thought it was satire, but Solanas, being as unhinged as she was, clarified that she believed in what she wrote. So, Solanas actually ended up working with Andy Warhol on a few things. She wrote a play called Up Your Ass that she sent to Warhol for review. At a certain point, the script got lost, but Warhol offered her some work in his avant-garde movies. Avant-garde, of course, being the polite way of saying shitty. Sorry, but I've always hated Warhol, and I'll talk more about that in the next entry. So, after writing the Scum Manifesto, she ended up making a deal with Maurice Girodias, a mutual friend of Warhol, about publishing. In short, she backed out of the deal because she believed that Girodias and Warhol were conspiring to steal her work, and to be fair, considering Warhol's most famous works being essentially, in a way, something he didn't necessarily make, I wouldn't trust the guy either. So let's fast forward a bit to the actual shooting. So we already know there's some bad blood between Warhol and Solanas. Despite working together, Solanas obviously didn't trust Warhol at all and hated him because he was male. Just read the Scum Manifesto at your own discretion. Now, there are actually conflicting reports on the timeline. Due to the possibility of Girodias lying to potentially increase the sales of the Scum Manifesto, which he published. So, Solanas might have actually been justified in backing out of working with Girodias for future publishing deals. To make a long story short, since we have so many more entries to get to, and these are all supposed to be general overviews and not deep dives, she went to the factory, which is what Andy Warhol's studio was called, waited for him, took the elevator up with him, fired 3 shots at him, missing the first 2, but landed the third one in his midsection, proceeded to shoot critic Mario. I didn't write his last name. She shot Mario. Oh, no. Proceeded to shoot art critic Mario Amaya, grazing his hip. Tried to shoot Fred Hughes, Warhol's manager at the time, but her gun jammed, and then she left. Warhol went under extensive surgery and had to wear a special corset for the rest of his life. Should also be noted, on the way to shoot Warhol, Solanas stopped at producer Margot Faden's place and talked to her for several hours about producing Up Your Ass, which she refused even when Solanas pulled her gun. Solanas then said that Faden would produce the film because she was going to shoot Warhol and become famous because of it. And, incidentally, here we are talking about this incident years and years later. So, perhaps Solanas was right in the end. Also, Faden called the police, but they refused to intervene. I mean, it was the 60s, so what do you expect? The trial thereafter put Solanas in a mental hospital where she was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. She was actually released in 1971, where she proceeded to stalk Warhol and was subsequently institutionalized. She drifted into homelessness, and there isn't much info on her later life. She passed away in 1988 from pneumonia. Andy Warhol's jizz paintings. Yeah, this one's pretty self-explanatory, and I'm not going to go into detail, and I'm not going to show it, because not only is it icky, but it's just not that good. Christ and piss look better. This might be a good example of something that holds value only because of the name attached to it. These pieces are hanging in museums, unfortunately, and hold a value of around 40 grand. Are you fucking kidding me? I'm just going to say, personally, in my opinion, I think Warhol was a hack, arguably the most overrated artist in history. Like, wow, soup cans. Wow, Marilyn Monroe in different colors. Wow, a 24-hour-long movie of a stationary shot of the Empire State Building. Honestly, fuck this guy. He sucked then, and what he left behind sucks now. Okay? There, I said it. Okay? I do think what Solanas did was very fucked up, and, I'm glad she went to a mental hospital for that, but still, I think he was a terrible artist, personally. That's just my personal opinion. I know I'm trying this. I said earlier I was going to be remaining objective, but I fucking hate Andy Warhol. Alright, a little bit off script there. Here we go. What do you guys think of Warhol? Do you actually like what he did, or are you with me in believing he wasn't all that great at all? Holly Brown's Cancellation. This one is honestly just dumb. So, Holly Brown is a fellow YouTube artist that was known for making content a bit edgier than other YouTube artists at the time she rose to prominence. If my recollection serves me correctly, she was part of the Fujoshi community and works on a BL comic. And I think she was the one who went viral for getting rejected from CalArts for literally having too good of a sketchbook. But we'll get to CalArts later. Anyway, she's still making videos, vlog-style art time-lapses, pretty standard stuff, but on a second channel. Her first channel was actually called HC Brown. So, D'Angelo Wallace was once an art YouTuber. Now he does typical YouTuber commentary slop. The same thing you'd see on your Drew Goodins, or your Danny Gonzalez's, or your Curtis Connor's. It's same fucking garbage. It's garbage. I hate these milquetoast, lukewarm, safe, edgy-ass channels. Sorry. got a little sidetracked, but I hate that content. But before getting back on track, let me just add, Ludwig is by far the worst one of them all. Okay. Ooh, a little spice. Let's see if we encounter any stands in the comments. Hey, it's cool if you like them. I just find them really fucking dull. Anyway, one day, D'Angelo Wallace woke up and chose violence. Well, not quite. So, here's what happened. Holly Brown did a sketch and traced a part of an image in some Full Metal Alchemist fan art. She posted a work in progress of it, and petty Twitter artist communities flipped the shit. Holly actually made an apology video about it, and that was that. But then D'Angelo Wallace poured gasoline on the fire, and his stands were all up in her comments section. Next thing you know, she loses her channel to hackers and never gets it back. She still uploads videos to her second channel, just titled Holly Brown, like I said, but she did lose a ton of subs in the migration. Personally, I don't think she was 100% in the right, but I think this was one of the most undeserved cancellations of all time. It really wasn't that big of a deal. It really wasn't that bad. Hell, you even got some professional artists on YouTube now telling you that some tracing is actually fine. If I wanted to add something, I really don't like D'Angelo Wallace. Never did. He always rubbed me the wrong way from the first day I came across his content. Seems like a big drama queen. So I guess that's why he's got such petty fans, but is what it is. Kind of fucked up she never got her main channel back. Oh, one thing pretty recently, though, that I kind of feel a need to add. She made a video about the Comicsgate guys a while back that was pretty well done. But she stated, quote, "I don't like the way these guys talk about women's bodies," in reference to the fact that Comicsgate guys understand attractive characters sell things while drawing her BL comic right on screen for everyone to see, about pretty boys, Yeah, a bit hypocritical, yeah? It kind of bothered me enough to add this addendum, but... side note, if you're trying to sell something, you should make the male characters as attractive as possible as well, okay? But yeah, I'm going off the rails here, but yeah, I don't think this was really that big of a controversial thing. I think things got conflated, and yeah, this was kind of R-worded. You know which R-word I'm saying. Ken Penders. Ken Penders is a fucking character, all right. Before we talk about Ken, we need to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic the Hedgehog, one of the greatest and most attractive characters ever thought up. He can run at sound speed, take out enemies in a flash, and best of all, he's blue-colored and knows how to handle the females.
That's honestly the best video on the goddamn internet. Anyway, Sonic the Hedgehog got a comic book published by Archie. I actually used to read it back in the day. Archie Sonic is notorious for being absolutely fucking bonkers, and to be honest, most fans kind of love it for that, myself included. And they have one man to thank for that, and that's Ken Penders. Now, since this is a general overview, I'd be here literally all day if I gave you the entire comic lore, so I'd recommend Low Art's multi-part series covering the comic story. It's very long, but it's very good. If you want an in-depth look at Penders himself, aside from the surface-level info I'm about to give you, Comic Drake did a pretty good video, and so did Matt. That's 4 T's. Kind of dumb, bro. Maybe I should change my name to John. So, Penders. He gets on the comic in the early days and shifts it into a darker direction. He also takes a special interest in Knuckles the Echidna and gets put in charge of Knuckles' spin-off comic, which is mandatory for a clear timeline of Archie Sonic if you wanted to read it. He had this Native American story he wanted to do that he kind of put on the Echidnas. He also has an infamous tweet about his Sonic OC, Jeffrey the Skunk, doing things with Princess Sally Eggcorn. Also, there's that Age of Consent tweet. Big fucking yikes on that one, dude. Oh yeah, there was also the Sonic movie pitch, which was awful. Just fucking awful. He also did this weird one-shot called Sonic Live, where he superimposed live photos of his kids and they got sucked into the Sega Genesis world or something. He took the comic in very weird directions. A lot of people were kind of disturbed by some of his artwork, which honestly, fair. We'll be getting back to disturbing artwork, but we have to go over how happy he was. Let's see. So he sued Sega over the Sonic Chronicles game because of how similar certain elements were to his weird Knuckles lore, which, in all fairness, making comparisons, he kind of did have a case. The similarities were extremely noticeable. Then there's the infamous end to the Archie Sonic comics. So, The Archie Sonic comics have become notorious for unresolved plot lines in the latter days, mostly due to Penders' strange writing style. Eventually, Archie hired on superfan Ian Flynn, who actually wrote a ton of fan letters over the years and actually ended up writing the last mainline Sonic game, Sonic Frontiers. Penders got fired and Flynn cleaned up his mess, resolving decades-old plot points. However, at a certain point, Penders sued Archie and won. Something to do with character ownership. You know how the big comics publishers like to screw over the creators if you're into comics, so I guess that's a win for creators. But he won, and the characters he made were taken out of the comic, and the comic was eventually canceled when someone at Sega saw the contents of the comic and said, hey, wait a minute, maybe we should be a little more caring when it comes to what people do with their brands and when we license them out, instead of letting this guy write this really weird and mature story that isn't really hitting the target demographic of kids. Maybe I don't know, guys. I don't know, boss. And then Sonic got a reboot in IDW Comics, ending the streak of the longest-running licensed comic ever without a reboot or retcon. There was also the recent incident after Sonic 2 came out, the movie, where he was threatening to sue Sega again over Knuckles stuff because he calls himself a Knuckles father or something, or father of Knuckles. I don't know. Anyway, Penders, now owning his OCs, went on to make the Laura Sue Chronicles. He also made a movie that was never released. I forget what it was called. I'll put it on screen. But, when is it coming, Ken? But the Laura Sue Chronicles, oh boy, the Laura Sue Chronicles, takes his OCs and starts this mature space opera story where they have made-up swear words but show tits. Don't know how that works, but this comic was in production for years and only recently released. I was actually considering doing a review for it for my comic review series, but some other people already made good videos about it, and I figured, alright, that ship has sailed already. The general consensus is that it wasn't that good, and Penders' new art style is very, very off-putting and unpleasant to the eye. Although, to be honest, if he puts out a book too, I might actually give it a shot. Speaking about things with uncanny proportions, Yaoi Proportions. This entry is just in reference to how strange some of the proportions are in yaoi manga, or boys love /BL as it's commonly referred to. These dudes have absurdly long necks and the most terrifying pair of hands you ever did see. Good lord. While the target demographic of these manga are women, frequently referred to as fujoshi, roughly translating to rotten girl, which we already covered, I can't help but think that there are probably some heterosexual women also put off by this. I understand that women are usually particular about men's hands. I guess they prefer larger, rougher, manlier hands. Sure. But these things are freaks of nature, man. Obviously, not every yaoi manga looks like this, but a lot do. It's not really my kind of genre, but hey, if you watching this are a fujoshi or even a fudanshi, which is the male equivalent, do you like these proportions or do you like something more realistic? Personally, it scares the shit out of me. Statue/art destruction. This one checks off the controversial and dark, weird, and controversial. So, this entry refers to times that artworks or statues have been destroyed, whether intentionally or not. There's, of course, the famous example of the Library of Alexandria, where a fire broke out and burned down tons and tons of precious books and whatever else may have been in there. But I actually want to focus on more recent examples. So there's a really funny one done by Banksy. Banksy is what you would call a street artist. I'd say a muralist, but he engages in illegally putting his art on walls, so I believe the term street artist is more applicable. He had a painting auctioned off for $25.4 million, and it shredded itself the second it was sold. Epic troll. That's the only W he's getting from me. I always thought his stuff was mid. And I actually saw someone agree with that when I asked for your hot art takes, which hey, if you're watching this far into this video, give me your hottest art takes down below. I need you to make content off of. Please. Running out of ideas here. There's also the debate around statues of Confederate soldiers. So if you're from outside the United States, a little thing called the Civil War happened. It was between the years of 1861 and 1865. Essentially, the country split into two, the Confederacy and the Union, the South and the North respectively, and they had a big old war over slavery. The Confederacy wanted to keep slavery and the Union wanted to abolish it. And a lot of people died. And that's sort of the long and short, really abridged version of the Civil War. I'm on. Go watch the History Channel if you want more on that. So there were some statues made of Confederate soldiers and commanders, and over time, people wanted them destroyed, and a lot did get destroyed in the aftermath of George Floyd's death during the 2020 riots. Excuse me, the 2020 mostly peaceful protests. Come on, look at this image. Like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to get into that stuff. Racism is bad. Violence is also bad, okay? Real fucking radical take, I know. But this opened up a debate of whether or not these statues of the losers of a war should even be made in the first place. Personally, I think they should be put in museums and not out in the public square, but that's just my take. What's yours? And when we're talking about the destruction of art, we have to talk about Just Stop Oil. Just Stop Oil is an environmentalist group who are more known for being obnoxious twats than preserving the environment. Yes, I did pronounce twat Britishly, because this group is based out of Britain. Or is it England? I don't know. I never understood that. Like, is it Britain? Is it England? I know the UK, like, that's it's part of Scotland, I think. No, it's all Scotland and, like, a little bit of Ireland. I don't know. I'm American. I don't care. USA, baby. I don't know. Anyway, they're known for throwing soup at some Van Goghs, which luckily were behind glass, but still, wow, what an asshole. They also glued themselves to the street, so everyone who's going to their job, a thing these protesters clearly don't have, has to idle in their cars emitting more gas while the police remove them than they would have if they didn't glue themselves in the first place, which is really counterintuitive. Of course, there was the recent Stonehenge incident, where they spray-painted Stonehenge for some reason. I believe it was a Japanese tourist that stopped them while the British natives looked on like, oh bollocks, it's these fucking wankers being fucking muppets again. Beans on toast. Sorry, it's been a minute since I made fun of British people. I just had to get it out of my system. I love you, Britain. Alright, you cool. You cool. I'm all for the renewable energy, recycling, electric vehicles, and all that stuff. I think most people are, but people that behave like this for the climate make me want to pollute deliberately. Could honestly be an iceberg all its own, but I just wanted to highlight a few recent examples. I'm not particularly in favor of it, but I do understand why people will want something like Confederate statues removed. I still believe that they should have been put in a museum and not just destroyed, but those are my thoughts. What are yours? Now, Flesh John's got a message for you. Wow, you can really see my balding from this angle. Wow, that's really bad. Keeps, hit me up, bro. Nah, I just shave it anyway. Alright, so, Flesh John here. How you guys doing? What's going on? How you doing? So, I was going to split this into two, but I've decided that I'm done covering dark stuff. There is far too much negativity and awful stuff in this world, and if I continue down this path of darker content, I'd be contributing to it. At first, I thought this would be an interesting series to do, and I do think it is, at the very least, interesting. However, after a while, I started realizing that I was just sort of exploiting the horrors and tragedies of the world, to twist into entertainment and even a bit of profit. Well, I'm sure if you watch the entire series or the inevitable supercut that's gonna come out after I'm done recording this segment, you enjoyed it and were educated on some of the most awful things in the art community, I cannot, in good conscience, continue covering this kind of stuff. However, I'm not against doing another Iceberg-like series. I actually found one pretty recently on webcomics that might be a good follow-up, especially considering I do some webcomic reviews. I'm done covering dark, horrible stuff, okay? It's not good for my mental. I don't want to keep contributing awful stuff to this world. I already make a really dark fantasy comic. I was going to say it was a dark fantasy, but like, it's dark fantasy, but it's also a dark story, which has like 5 readers, so shout out to like the 5 readers. Read Doomsayer. Link in description. Mature content, adult audiences only. But there's a few more entries suggested by you, the viewers, and a couple of things I came up with myself, so I'm just going to go rapid fire on these next few and wrap this thing up, so let's go. Toxic paint. Toxic paint refers to paint made out of chemicals that were actually poisonous to humans, most notably lead paint, which used to be used in everything way back, and of course, cadmium. Everyone loves when Bob Ross uses some of that sweet cadmium red. So essentially, this entry just refers to the fact that throughout history, various toxic paints have been used. There is, however, one extremely notable incident in history with toxic paint that's worth mentioning, and that's the Radium Girls. So, it was the 1920s, watch factories, New Jersey, Illinois, and Connecticut. These women worked on painting the dials and used their mouths to bring the brushes to a point with a luminous paint or paint that glows in the dark. Should be noted that they were told to use their mouths to point the brushes. That's how they were trained. The pay was horrible, and the people in charge knew of the dangers of luminous paint, but they didn't care about these workers. A lot of them died from radiation poisoning. These incidents had a profound effect on research involving radiation and, of course, labor rights. I'm sure there's some well-produced documentary on this out there, because I have a vague recollection of seeing something like that way back, but can't pinpoint it. Maybe it was on the Science Channel or something like that, but yeah, toxic paint. Keep an eye out for that stuff. Schmorky. Oh boy, Schmorky. Schmorky was an animator who went nuts, essentially. She, if I believe I'm using the appropriate pronouns, just trying to be respectful, was responsible for the "This Is Fine" meme. Was a household name, did big things, and eventually logs leaked of her being a, quote, adult baby diaper lover, end quote. Do not research. She liked to shit her pants or something, I don't know. It's honestly a whole thing. I'd recommend Magic Mush's video on it. There's also a really funny conspiracy that she became stone-tossed doing a complete 180 on her politics. But that's been debunked since the stone-toss doxing incident. Which, once again, folks, don't dox people. That's not cool. AI album art. There are bands and artists using AI for their album covers. It's really shitty. And it might get them sued eventually. Stay tuned for a video that I've been brainstorming called A Final Critique of AI Art, or something along those lines. That's going to be this big project documenting its history and controversies, as well as one last final critique on it. Dolly Flesh. Dolly Flesh was a claymation animator. He was also an incel, if you couldn't tell by his haircut. He made some really disturbing animations, and it came out that he tortured some animals. Very serial killer vibes. To my knowledge, he left the internet. Not sure if he paid for what he did to those innocent animals. Ricardo Lopez. Ricardo Lopez was a relatively unknown artist. As a matter of fact, not much is known about his actual art. He's mostly known as the Bjork Stalker. He made a video diary of his obsession with the Icelandic singer, spiraling into madness and eventually taking his own life. There were also some dangerous packages he shipped in the mail that luckily were detected and failed. There's a pretty good video by Count Dankula chronicling his madness, and I'll link it in the description. CalArts Conspiracy. CalArts Conspiracy refers to the art style of various cartoons created by people who attended the school CalArts. It's heavily classified by the bean-shaped heads. A lot of people cited the cartoon Steven Universe for the origin of the style. However, funnily enough, Rebecca Sugar, the creator of Steven Universe, actually did not attend CalArts. There's a pretty good video by Just a Robot on the subject if you want to learn more. I think Channel Frederator did one too. Purple Kecleon. Purple Kecleon is a Pokemon fan artist that's been accused of grooming minors. That's it. I don't like researching those kinds of people, yeah. Also, if you're a minor watching my channel, you probably shouldn't be. Go play Fortnite and watch Skibbity Riz or whatever the hell. Moving on. Ridiculous Cake. Looking into this one, I couldn't find much. This artist does some animations and fat fetish art, which, whatever. I believe they got some YouTube strikes. That's about all I got. I don't know. Maybe you guys could provide more context for this one in the comments. Animated James, another YouTube animator accused of grooming. I swear, every YouTuber that's big that I've never heard out turned out to be a groomer. Like, every single one. Hey, it's a pretty good thing that I was a hag maxer back when it was called MILF hunting, okay? I've always liked older women, okay? Well, what can I say? Anyway, moving on. Wolfie Chew. Okay, so from what I understand, Wolfie Chew is a storytime animator similar to channels like The Odd Ones Out, stuff like that. And she got canceled for having a high-pitched voice. Like, people were angry that she has a higher-than-average voice. Like, that's it. Like, they got angry over that. What is wrong with people? Next, Puppy Chan. Puppy Chan came up previously in the Antunes entry. They were friends, then they weren't, and Puppy Chan not only pretended to be Asian, which, what the fuck, dude? Guess what she did? Go on, guess. Come on. Drum roll. I can't do a good drum roll noise. Grooming. What the fuck is with these YouTube animators and grooming? Not cool, guys. And once again, if you're a minor watching this, get out. Get out. My content is intended for an adult audience. I see that like 1% and it has me very concerned. Rebornica. Rebornica was a Five Nights at Freddy's fan artist. Based on surface level research, she disappeared one day, came back years later to harass someone that was drawing a similar style, likely influenced by her work, and was a big asshole about it. There were some accusations of stealing characters that were OCs of a franchise she didn't create. Funny that, yeah? And then Rebornica disappeared again. Luckily not a groomer this time, just an asshole. Bleed Man. Bleed Man was an artist that drew lolly fan art. That's it. Shit's creepy and weird. We already covered it. Fuck that guy. Next, Louis Quiles. Louis Quiles is an artist that draws some unsettling pieces, sometimes bordering on pornographic and sometimes grotesque. That's about it. To be honest, personally, I don't really like his pieces. His colors are kind of shit, and the rendering looks kind of peculiar, almost like it was partially traced, but hey, if you like it, that's fine, whatever. But finally, we're taking a break from the kitty diddlers. Walter Keane. Walter Keane is the most famous art plagiarist in history. He passed off paintings created by his wife Margaret as his own in the 60s. Yeah, that's it. I might touch on him again when I get around to making that final critique on AI art video that I've been planning in the back of my head. Probably sometime in like November or December even. Bob Kane. Most people know Bob Kane as the creator of Batman. It was actually a guy named Bill Finger. Kane stole all the credit, so yeah. Another infamous example of art plagiarism, which is something that we will be revisiting when I finally get to that AI video. And that's it. No more dark stuff, okay? Researching this, honestly, was not fun. And I, personally, don't feel good about it. Feels like I'm sort of exploiting the horrors of the world and trying to, like, reverse engineer it into entertainment and profit. And I just feel icky about it, okay? But I did want to finish this because I said I would. I just want to do art videos, honestly. I know they won't perform as well as these darker videos, but I don't care. Anyway, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching and hanging with me throughout this horrifying journey through some of the strangest and some of the most horrible people in the art world. Why don't you check out another video of mine? I do make some art on this channel, if you're not aware. And I'm assuming if you've been watching the series, you like art. All right? So, yeah, that's the end. I'll see you next time. But before you go, I just want to say thank you for watching this video.